Hey guys, Billy here with another video. Today we're going to be changing the shifter shaft seal on this Subaru Impreza. So the first thing you want to do is locate the leak. I found the leak coming from the shifter shaft seal. It's on the side of, pretty much on the top of the transmission. It was running, there was fluid leaking down the side of it. Once I located that leak, I was ready to tackle the job. So the first thing you want to do is take the full exhaust off. I find it's easier to just take that off. There's only 3 hangers and 3 bolts holding it on, as shown in this clip right here. The exhaust bolts were a little rusty, so I had to heat them up, and then they came right off, no problem. I usually like to spray some kind of lubricant on the rubber hangers just so they'll slide off easier. I got myself a set of these exhaust hanger pliers. They're actually really good at taking exhaust hangers off. Makes the job a lot easier. So you just want to get something to support the exhaust when you take the hangers off. Usually I like to get someone to help me, but at this time I didn't have nobody around to help me, so I managed to get it done without them. But yeah, it's definitely easier to drop the exhaust with 2 people. The next piece you want to remove is this heat shield right here. It's pretty much right under the drive shaft, in the middle of the drive shaft and the exhaust. It's only 4 12mm bolts holding it in, so you can pop that off pretty quick. The next step will be to take the drive shaft out. What you want to do here is mark your drive shaft. Just take a marker and mark where the drive shaft lines up to the front and rear diff. That way you make sure that you put it on the right way again after. There's 2 bolts holding the center bearing in, and then there's 4 bolts holding the other end of the drive shaft into the rear diff. The front side will just slide right out. Once you get the 4 bolts out of the back, end of the drive shaft, you can remove the center bearing. For this, there's two 17 mil bolts holding it in. Once you get that out, the whole drive shaft will just slide right out. Depending on how angled your car is, if you have it up on a floor jack or something, you're going to want to put a catch pan under the transmission because you might lose a little bit of fluid once you slide that drive shaft out. Next, you're going to want to remove the transmission cross member or the transmission mount. This will just give you a little bit extra room. You can probably get it done without taking that off, but I like to have as much room as possible when I'm working. Especially with seals and stuff, you want to make sure that you're getting them in correctly and all that. And for this car, it's only 4 bolts to get the cross member out, so I just went ahead and took that off. So once the cross member is out of the way, you can get to the shift linkage now. So there's one 12 mil nut holding on this shift shaft on the side of the transmission. You can remove that. There's also 3 bolts holding the bracket that it's attached to on. You can also remove that bracket as well. The next part's a little tricky. There's going to be 2 pins holding the other shift shaft onto the transmission. There's a smaller pin inside of a bigger pin. So what I did is I used 2 different size punches. You punch out the small pin first, and then once the small pin's out, you can get the bigger pin out. On this car, they slid right out pretty easily. On older vehicles, it might not come out so easily, but there is 2 pins in there that you have to take out for the shifter shaft to come out. So once you get everything undone with both shifter shafts, you're ready to take the back housing of the transmission off. Once you get that off, you'll have lots of room to change that shifter shaft seal. You're also going to lose some fluid once you take this cover off, so I just put a catch pan underneath. There's 8 bolts holding on to this back housing part. Once you get the 8 bolts out, you can there's one spot where there's a high edge. You just tap on that a little bit and it should start separating, and then you just wiggle it back and forth until it slides right out. So once you get that back housing off, there is plenty of room to get to the seal that you need to replace. I just used a small flathead screwdriver and I was able to pop the seal right out. To install the new one, I used a homemade seal driver that I made specifically for this vehicle, and
that'll probably cause a fuel leak.
Once you get the new seal in, you're ready to put everything back together. You just want to spread some gasket maker. First, you want to clean up both surfaces. Once both surfaces are clean, you want to add some gasket maker onto the transmission side or the other side, doesn't really matter as long as you put some on one side. You want to slide in the other end of the transmission back in and put all the bolts in. Make sure they are torqued to spec, and once you get those all in, you're ready to put everything back together just how it was. You're going to want to start with the shift linkage, then you're going to want to put in the cross member and the drive shaft and all that. I didn't have enough battery to record the rest of the job, so I'm just going to explain it really quick. So yeah, if you just watch the video backwards, you'll be able to put everything back together just how it was. Thanks for watching.